The United States Navy dispatched 4 warships over this past weekend following an incursion of 11 military vessels from Russia and China operating near Alaska's Aleutian Islands. Joining us in our studio tonight is Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan to talk about the situation. It has a lot of Alaskans asking questions and feeling on edge. Senator, thanks for joining us this evening.
Great to be back on the program, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Senator, first of all, do you have any new updates today about this incident from the Defense Department that you can share with us? And can you just run through basically what happened?
Well, this is something we've been monitoring for quite some time, and Senator Murkowski and I got a classified briefing a few days ago. This is an unprecedented, very large 11-warship joint naval task force between Russia and China. In that regard, it's unprecedented. And they've been traveling around, and we're focused on Alaska. Now, Mike, this is unprecedented in terms of size and scope, but also it's something that actually happened with a smaller group last year. And what happened last year after this happened, the response I thought was quite tepid. I love our Coast Guard, but we sent one Coast Guard cutter to try to monitor this large joint task force. So when I met with our military officials after that, I said, look, we need to do a much better job to send a much more robust response, especially given how important Alaska is for our country. So to the credit of our military leaders, this time they did send, as you mentioned, 4 destroyers and some U.S. Navy P-8s that were actually here at J-Bear. So that was a much better response, but this is something that, in my view, is going to continue until we have our own military buildup, our military assets, military infrastructure, something that I've been pressing our military for years on, how important Alaska is, our strategic location. As you know, the father of the U.S. Air Force, Billy Mitchell, called Alaska the most strategic place in the world. And I think this weekend, hopefully, is going to be a wake-up call for Pentagon leaders on continuing the military buildup here. But this is something I think we're going to see more of, is China and Russia continue to work together, and it's certainly a more dangerous world.
Senator, without disclosing anything that's classified, of course, can you tell us a little bit more about what happened? How close to Alaska territory did they get? How close did the U.S. Destroyers and warships get to these Russian and Chinese vessels?
The U.S. warships were conducting, monitoring and shadowing operations. This is what they do. We have the most professional, lethal military in the world. So it was good that we had that kind of robust response. You know, Mike, I don't want to get into the classified information, but the briefing I had, it wasn't in territorial waters. That's 12 miles off the coast of Alaska and the Aleutian Island chain. But within the EEZ, that's 200 miles. So, and again, it's not just the fact that they were off the coast of Alaska. It was the size of this joint task force. I think that this was alarming to a number of people, that they are operating together in this size of a joint task force, 11 warships. But again, to me, the positive element here was that, unlike last year, this was a much more robust response. But I think, as I mentioned, in this new era of authoritarian aggression, we need to be ready for this. We need to be able to have our own capability to respond. And that's why I've been pressing for a continued military buildup, not just in terms of assets, more Coast Guard vessels, hopefully Navy ships, but also infrastructure. One area that I know you've been focused on in the program here in Channel 2 is the buildup of the deepwater port in Nome. That's finally starting to happen. That will give us the ability to actually have U.S. Navy vessels, U.S. Coast Guard vessels to be ported in the Bering Sea area in Western Alaska. That kind of infrastructure and power projection capability is going to be critical. But back to your question, the task force left about 2 days ago. It was in the area for a few days prior to that. It's something that our military had been monitoring from the Indo-PACOM theater into the NORTHCOM commander theater. As you know, Alaska actually is in between 2 of these combatant commands in terms of the Indo-PACOM theater and the NORTHCOM commander who protects the United States. And again, it shows why we're so important. We're the gateway to the Arctic. We're the gateway, and we're actually in the Indo-Pacific. And again, I think we're going to see more of this, and we need to be ready for it.
Senator, we only have just a few seconds left. We do want to mention this. Tell us a little bit about the Navy naming a vessel in honor of an Alaskan native Navy SEAL.
Oh, my gosh. We got this news today, Mike. You know, a couple of years ago, the Navy, and I was pressing this hard, named a destroyer after the late, great Senator Ted Stevens. That's just fantastic. We have a hero from Metlakatla, Saul Atkinson. I was honored to know him. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. Literally one of the fathers of the U.S. Navy SEALs. He was on SEAL Team 1, the plank holder, essentially, of the Navy SEALs. 30 years in the U.S. Navy, 3 tours in Vietnam. He trained Navy SEALs for decades. He was actually referred to as the Mean Machine. He not only trained Navy SEALs and was one of the original Navy SEALs, he trained dozens of American astronauts, including Neil Armstrong. This is a truly unsung American hero from Alaska, a great leader, and the Navy honored him today. They're going to name a U.S. Navy ship after him. I couldn't be more excited, and it's great for Alaska, great for Metlakatla, great for this wonderful family, the Atkinson family, to remember what a great American hero he was.
And you mentioned the new Navy destroyer named after Senator Ted Stevens. We'll be sending a crew down to Mississippi for the christening of that vessel late next week.
That's going to be great.
Senator Dan Sullivan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it.